What's going on, guys? My name is Wyatt Reed, and this is the Ascend Your Success podcast. And today I get to interview my friend Jeremiah Smith. He's a local investor in the area, and man, he just quit his job to go full-time real estate. A lot of awesome conversation to be had in this interview, man. Can you introduce yourself? I'm terrible with introductions, so can you introduce yourself and tell us who you are, what you do?
Yeah, of course, Wyatt, and just good morning and thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to come in here and talk with you. As Wyatt said, I'm Jeremiah Smith. I'm a Pennsylvania native, but I think for the last 16 years I've lived south for the Mason-Dixon line. So I guess I consider myself a resident Yankee, between Florida, Texas, and now Alabama. So I spent the last, give or take, 25 years in security and risk management of some form and fashion, while working a lot of odd jobs along the way, but that's predominantly kind of been a career path for me. And then I have my beautiful wife, Amanda. We just celebrated our 13th wedding anniversary, and we got our 6.5-year-old daughter, Kinsley. And we're right here in Northeast Alabama, trying to make it happen, doing deals.
Man, I love it. I love it. So what got you into the real estate side of things?
Yeah, I get that question often, and I ask myself that. You know, it kind of goes back, I guess, when my wife and I first met. We were down in Texas. We got married in Florida and then very quickly moved to Texas for a job opportunity. And we found ourselves buying a house that needed some TLC. And through that process, we organically just started to enjoy kind of the house fixer-upper stuff. And this is back in that era when like Chip and Joanna Gaines were like the only like OGs on HGTV doing fixer-upper. And they
Right.
were right there in Texas, so it resonated with us. So we're like watching what they do and their style, and we're like, well, let's do that to our house. And of course, one leads to two, two leads to three. And with that, kind of on the inside, get a little more personal right out of the gate here. I always felt, though I was blessed to have the career path that I did, there was always something tugging at me, like there was something more out there, something different.
Mm.
While I feel that I was relatively decent at what I did, and it paid well, paid the bills, I just felt like there was more. I will tell you why. Back then, I didn't see this coming. We're going back like, 2013, 14.
Mm.
But yeah, so we just kind of organically started to do this like little house hacking thing. And it really wasn't, I think, until we got here to Alabama. Um, I don't know. I just things started popping up. How sometimes the Lord just puts things in front of you and it weighs on your heart, and you're like, well, let me look at this, let me read this, let me go meet that person. And one thing led to another, and next thing you know, we're in a real estate group, and that was the bigger pockets. I think a lot of people start there. They kind of
Mm.
just pick that scab and jump in there and connect with people to learn and listen. And then, man, it just kind of blew the lid off from there once we started finding these Facebook groups and some of these private coaching groups. And we started really educating ourselves along the way to where we started doing deals that weren't houses that we lived in.
Yeah, man. I totally align with what you were saying as far as the there was always something more. Like when I worked in the factory, like even when I was there, like I knew there was something else. Like I had made it to where I thought I wanted to be in life. Like I was an engineer, I had a salary, I had my wife had a great job, we had great income coming in, we had a new house, we had the cars, we had everything at a young age that we thought that we wanted in life. And I was like, man, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
There's got to be something more out there. So, and I'm sure most people who are going to be listening to this are either dealing with this or have dealt with it in the past. So, what action? I mean, obviously, it sounded like you got in and you just really started on your own. Bigger pockets helps. That's kind of how I got started too. Then hired a mentor and then took off from there. What did it look like for you to get your first deal and do that? I think you said you house hacked, right? Or
Yeah, we house hacked the ones that we lived in, but our first quote unquote deal, if you want to call it like as a business, in terms of when we formed our entity and said, hey, let's do this as kind of a side hustle.
hmm
Um, one of the things I learned early on, and I'm so thankful I did, was building that network. And that's something, as you know, that just never stops. It's like, lead flow or raising private money. It's networking is equally
right.
as important. And so we went into that space really hard, just building out a network of, going to local meetups, shaking hands with people, talking with agents, other investors, wholesalers. And so I guess in the early days, a lot of the deals that we did do as fix and flips came from wholesalers mostly.
That's awesome. That
Yeah.
was exactly how I got my first 5 deals too, from wholesalers and realtors. So if you're listening to this and you're like just wanting to get into real estate, like I feel, and Jeremiah, you may have a different outlook on this, but the way that I teach people is like you need to be finding leads immediately, because if I teach you how to run numbers on a property without
Mhm.
you having any properties yet,
Yeah.
then I'm gonna have to reteach you whenever you get the properties down the road. So like we start from day one looking for leads, wholesalers, realtors, for sale by owners. I got 2 houses off of Craigslist in the past 2 years. So just there are so many free ways you can find leads now. When you start doing that, obviously it's the same as if you're sending out 1,000, 2,000 postcards, right? You've got to filter through all the crap to get to your one deal, right? It doesn't take anything less.
Yeah,
So
I love that. Why I love that you start the students there because it really is a funneling process or a mechanism. I'll tell you that I think I didn't share this with you, but it was like a 2 year period where I was kind of doing that sideline, going into bigger pockets, scanning Zillow like a lot of people do, thinking I'm gonna find a deal. And I'm not saying you can't find a deal there, but I was kind of just lost in the sauce, out there just doing
oh
the
yeah.
Zillow MLS listings. And it wasn't until I got intentional and had somebody kind of coach me and point me in the right direction, and very quickly, oh, hey, what do you know? Oh, yeah, there's not one but two popped up.
Right.
And so, yeah, I really appreciate the fact that you start folks there. You're saving them a lot of time.
Right, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Time and money, because most people who are getting in are just regular, like normal folks. I mean, we work 9 to 5 jobs. We're blue collar. I mean, white collar engineers, or people who work in factories or whatever. I think me and you have a mutual friend, Gatlin. He worked at Waffle House, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and
Sure.
he
Go
quit his
Gatlin.
job and is doing it full time. So
Yeah.
it just normal everyday people. So you got to kind of cater to that, and once you get your first deal or your first 2 deals, then you can start leading into the paid marketing and stuff like that, if that's what you want to do.
Yeah.
So with that being said, I think that's a good transition to like now, versus then. What are you doing now? What does your real estate businesses look like, and what are you focused on now?
Yeah. Thanks. Well, I guess just I'll take one step back. So my wife and I, again, we kind of got into this together, and we were partners and still are in a sense. But once I kind of transitioned out of the W-2 and leaned into it full time, even slightly before that, we recognized that we're just not going to be able to both at this point in time in life lean into it the way we'd like to together. And so, she's kind of taking care of home base, if you will. Works full time as a nurse, tends to our daughter as well, and then I then have the bandwidth and kind of the opportunity to go build a relationship and now a new partnership. So I guess what I'm trying to say is I have a new partner or a partner that I really, kind of am working with to take the business to the next level, to help grow it and scale it. And so in doing that, we're sticking to a lot of the basics, things that work, things that are proven, continuing building out the network, looking to see how we can JV with others and work with bird dogs, really developing meaningful relationships with wholesalers. And I think you'll appreciate this. I don't need to know 100 different wholesalers in a market. I just need to know 5 to 10 really good ones where we
Right.
can do legit, just good business together, and source deals, with each other, and maybe from time to time, structure a JV or something like that.
Hmm.
Beyond that, we are doing some Facebook paid, sponsored ads, which are certainly helping. We just shifted our markets a little bit, so we're starting to see the algorithm catch up. We had a lot more lead flow coming in this week, which is a good thing. But yeah, just basic Facebook ad marketing. We're also doing some free stuff in Facebook, and then just really using the network. It's my partner's kind of in that same position, and I imagine it's good with you too. Like I didn't leave my W-2 to chase deals. I left
Right.
my W-2 to build a business, to grow it and scale it. But mind you, we are still, though we've been doing it for 3+ years, we're still feel like we're in that infancy stage to where, now the rubber meets the road. Like this is it. This is the full time gig, and so we're really, really leaning into that. And so
Yeah.
that's kind
Yeah.
of where we're at today.
Dude, I mean, I'll tell you this, and everybody who's listening, like I've got 8 projects going right now, and all of them have come from wholesalers and people that I've built network with, a couple of realtors. So like I'm like you. I'm focusing back on the basics. There's not a lot of market spin with that stuff, but when you're in these small markets, like when I first got started, I was like, oh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to do this. And then as I started doing that and I started building relationships with people, I met these small local investors who seem to always have deals coming into them, but they're like, oh no, we're just doing it by our, people know that
Yeah.
we do what we do. And I'm like, man, if it was that easy, I should be doing that. But I'm over here sending out thousands of postcards and texts and this, that, and the other. And these guys are just rolling. And I'm like, there's something to this. So
Yeah.
we still do paid marketing and stuff like that. But I've kind of like what you said, kind of gone back to the basics. And dude, it blew up. Like you said, kind of like the Lord's just like placing them in our lap. It's
Yeah.
being faithful to what we've been called to do, and being good stewards. I think that's where the blessing lies. So um,
Yeah.
so
I
yeah.
appreciate the fact that sometimes we make these assumptions, that everybody's, maybe operating at a higher level or they're already tied to some, organization. Same thing too, what they say, every once in a while, a blind squirrel still finds a nut, right?
Right.
I find that I'm bumping into more and more people that are independently just trying to turn a couple of deals. Maybe they're kind of new with the whole, I left my W-2 and I'm trying to be an entrepreneur or a real estate investor. And those are wonderful opportunities to, when you get to meet somebody like that early on in the journey, to kind of help them along and let them know kind of what you're looking for and kind of coach them a little bit. We're finding too, that there's a lot of folks too that they'll go after deals that are property, but it's predominantly from a cash perspective. And that
Mm.
doesn't always work for the seller, right? The seller might have some unique situation or some kind of an issue, or what we might consider a kind of a pain point in life. And so that gives us an opportunity to kind of coach them on how to maybe offer terms or some kind of a term solution around what the seller's dealing with, so that it becomes a win-win scenario for both parties. And
Yeah.
that's probably the biggest joy I get out of doing this. And that's even whether we buy the property or not, is just really digging in to find out what is the issue there, and bringing somebody else along for that ride and teaching them how to do that. And that goes just a long way, kind of talks to that, building that meaningful relationship to where now they are going to look at you for kind of their first stop when they run into a scenario like that, to maybe bring you that deal offering.
Yeah, man. I'm glad you brought that up. That's a whole we can do a whole nother podcast episode on terms and financing and stuff like that. But just for you guys listening, and this is I tell people this all the time because I have discovery calls with people all the time who are trying to wholesale, and that's all they feel like they think they can do. And I'm just like, look, you're out here throwing out a bunch of cash offers, lowball cash offers. I'm gonna be able to beat you every time because I anchor with my cash offer, and then I go for a seller finance deal or a novation, or I have two or three other offers that I can go up $30,000-$40,000 on your lowball cash offer because I know the things that I know. And so I always tell people, like, have an open mind and be able to listen and solve problems and create more win-win situations. Don't just throw out lowball cash offers all day long, because that's what you'll be known for. And I
Yeah.
want to be known for, being a well-rounded investor who knows how to listen, knows how to create win-win situations. That actually those situations are usually more profitable, anyways, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
We're
yeah.
deal. We're actually we're in the midst of one right now, Wyatt, that falls right into what we're talking about. It's a couple in North Huntsville, and they are specifically looking for an investor that can buy on terms. I mean, they I guess they're hired landlords, so they understand it. But their number one, I guess, concern is the tax strategy. And so they actually asked us to come with kind of an option A, B, and C as far as a terms deal, so that they can go take it to their accountant and sit down and determine which one is going to best suit them for their tax strategy in 2025.
Mm,
And man, that's just a good feeling. I mean, that's an easy conversation of finding just like what works for them, what works for us, and then we move forward with closing the deal.
yeah.
Um,
I love it. You can
Kind of
you can
brings
get
it home.
around banks. Yeah, you can get around banks, and you can get around hard money lenders. You save a lot. You save thousands of dollars by creating term deals. So that's what I say. That's my main bread and butter. Like, I want you to be a well-rounded investor, but I also, like, I want you to have a portfolio where you're the bank and not the landlord, right? So, um, but yeah, heck yeah, man. Well, we got a little bit of time left. Um, Me and you have started to transition a little bit in our businesses to more capital raising. Can you talk on that a little bit? What you've seen and kind of why you've started to transition into that?
Yeah, sure thing. It goes back, I think, I'd say maybe like the last 6 months when I knew there was runway here to putting in my resignation and kind of turning off the 25-year career. I started thinking to myself, I'm still working a full-time W-2, so my time allocation to real estate was still minimal to where I'd like it to be. And I thought, what do we hear all the time? And what are the two things you got to have in your business, right? Are leads and capital. And
Right.
I thought, well, again, I built the network. I'm not saying I had a strong lead flow at that time, but I knew the people, and I continued to grow that because I can do that around a W-2. I can slip away and make that work. But raising capital was a uniquely different challenge. But I realized very quickly that hey, I'm not going to have a W-2 in most likely 6 months. And full transparency, I was really heavily contingent on that because I used a lot of bank money.
Mm.
And that's a good feeling to be able to walk into a small town bank, build a relationship with them, and then go leverage construction loans over and over again for your fix and flips. But
Hmm.
I realized, hey, this well might dry up here pretty soon, so I got to step outside of my box and go look for other money. And so coincidentally, while I was kind of in that little season of transition there was an opportunity. There was a girl by the name of Amber McCullough, who's in one of the groups I follow. And she, 2 years ago, I don't think she was really very active at all in real estate. And just in the last year or so, she raised, over $10 million herself in private money for commercial deals. And I thought, well, that's fascinating. And so she was kind enough to actually do a course, a little class over a 4-week period. And at its core, it was really about just relationships. It was about building meaningful relationships with people, trust, and understanding kind of what their emotional ties are to money and how they relate to it. And so that really kind of helped build my confidence in how I talk to people. I don't know how often do we talk, or you hear people talk, they call it their elevator pitch, where they're like, hey, how would you like to make XYZ return, backed by real estate. And while that's still effective and meaningful, there's a lot more to it than that, right? It's
Right.
trust, it's value, it's bringing an opportunity to somebody as a lender. And so once that kind of sank in, and I realized, okay, that's really the angle I need to come from. Again, the Lord just started putting people in front of me that were like, hey, you're still doing that real estate thing. Got a little money, like to see if you could do something with it. And so my capital raising up to this point's been, I don't want to jinx it here, but I don't want to say it's been easy, but
Right.
I think I've had more people come to me than me actually go to them, just based on kind of knowing who I am as far as a character, what we do in our business, and how we're doing it.
Yeah.
And so now I realize I'll have to go outside of that little comfort box that I'm in right now, but it's just been a blessing to raise capital the way I have, again, kind of a relationship first approach.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think it makes it way easier. We got cut off. Uh, I think we were at like 1.3 with hard money, and they were like, "Hey, we can't give you anymore." And I was like, "Well, I still got deals, you know." And we had refinances coming up and everything like that. Like we were chucking along, but it was crazy. So I was like complaining to a friend of mine about it, and he was like, "Well, I have $100,000 if you want to, buy this deal." And I was like, "Well, that was easy." And so
That's
that
awesome.
was the catalyst for me. I was like, man, if it's this easy, and it's not always that easy,
Yeah.
but I think like in the last 3 months we've started raising money. We're close to 1 million raised, and it's because all of the people who I've raised it from know me, and they've had a relationship with me over the past 3 6 years,
Yeah.
and they trust what I do, and they see what I do all the time, and that's kind of what we were talking about earlier, was that
Yeah.
whole branding thing. So yeah, it's a game changer. Right out the gate, you may not be able to raise that much money by not having a network, or not even doing a deal yet. I partnered with one of my buddies one time and got a bridge loan from him, but you know we're in groups. We're both in groups, masterminds, coaching, where we can lean on and utilize their resources too. And
Yeah.
so I think that's really important thing for you to look at is get in a group, get a mentor, get whatever it takes to get access to somebody else's resources. Utilize them until you can build your own resources, and then rock and roll from there.
Yeah. Why,
So
it's something I'd like to kind of just touch on because I don't want to sugarcoat, the raising private capital. and I think you agree with this, it ebbs and flows. Like that is a kind of a job in of itself to nurture those relationships and stay in touch with those people and keep the deal flow going too. Because when we talk about raising capital, sometimes or oftentimes it's somewhat of what we call a soft commit. The money might be there today, but if you don't come back for 6 weeks till you find a deal that fits that deal box for them, it might not be there. And so
Right.
we've experienced that on the journey as well. So it's not all, puppy dogs and butterflies when raising private capital. That can be a full-time job of nurturing those relationships and keeping that kind of that even flow of deals and money match
Yeah.
together.
Yeah, especially if you're raising deal by deal. I think it's easier to raise deal by deal than to something like what we're doing as far as like a fund goes.
Yeah,
Because you literally have, hey, here's the deal, here's what you're gonna make. This is it. Whereas, what I'm raising for the 506c, and it's like, hey, take your retirement and put it with us so we can give you a
yeah,
better return on your money, right? So it's
yeah,
just different. But you're right. I have a list of people that I had soft offers on, and they were like, yeah, that sounds great. Let me know when you're ready to rock and roll. And we spent like months getting this fund ready because you have to, comply with SEC and do everything like that. And then when we finally got it, they were like, well, I don't know about it now. And I'm like, well,
yeah,
why'd you get my hopes up? You sent me through an emotional roller coaster. Um,
yeah.
but yeah, you should always be trying to talk to people about raising capital, and you should always be like trying to find more houses, right? That's our two major things. So
And be
let me just
open-minded
ask you a
about it
question.
too.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying, and be open-minded about it. Don't ever dismiss anybody in the room. You don't know who's who and what's going on in their world. I've been
Right.
surprised many times. It's humbled me a few times.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. So we're up on time. I got a
All
couple of
right.
questions I want to ask you. Number one, how long did it take when you started your first deal to when you quit your job? How long did that take you?
Oh man, we're looking at about almost exactly a 3-year period.
Oh
Yeah, it's
wow.
been
Okay.
3 years from when I put my first LLC together, did my first fix and flip to leave my job. Almost exactly 3 years to the date. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. What advice do you have to people who are wanting to do that exact thing?
Yeah, just stick to the basics. Build out a roadmap and just, kind of look at where you want to go. I think a lot of times people dive into it and don't really have a plan, and
Mm,
within reason, of course, but just, look at where it is you want to go and what is it you want to do, and, spend time in those groups and in those camps, kind of looking at what's what and what's not. I know I suffered with shiny object syndrome for probably the first 2 years, which is probably
oh
what
yeah.
delayed me in making the move, right?
Yeah.
But once I realized what my two swim lanes were, it just kind of came to fruition. It just came a lot easier. And then I know too, a lot of times I do want to touch on this real quick. If you have a partner or spouse, try to invite them in. Don't expect them to be as equally as excited about what it is you want to do and why you want to do it, but at least open it up to them. Have some conversations from time to time and dedicated time around it. Because if you don't have that level of support, it is just that much harder. And I feel blessed and I'm very fortunate. My wife jumped in with me. She gets it. She understands it. And though she's not beside me day by day in it, she knows what's going on, and it's made it a lot easier that I don't have, somebody distracting me, kind of pull me back, saying, "Why are you doing that? Hey, that seems risky." And so I
Yeah.
know that can be a challenge for a lot of people. So don't discard that as part of your plan if you have, intentions or this feeling like, "Hey, I want to make that move too. I've been thinking about it." And start putting some of that thought into action and start having intentional conversations with your loved ones and let them know kind of where you're at and what it is you want to do.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Too often we see people come to us and they're like, "Oh, I want to make $1 million," or "Oh, I want to have 100 houses," and it's like, "Okay, well, what are you doing now?" And it's like, "Oh, well, I don't know. I just want that, right?" And I'm like, "Okay, well, let's make some manageable milestones. Like,
There you
what's
go.
your income right now at your job? Okay, let's replace that first. Let's hit that milestone. Let's win there. What are your expenses? Like, are you taking care of that? Do you have 3 to 6 months worth of a hedge just in case something happens, and let's hit that milestone. Okay, now let's think about getting out of your job. Like, let's have a plan in place and don't just say I want $1 million. Why do you even
Yeah.
want $1 million? Like, what
Yeah.
are you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in God's not going to give it to you unless you're prepared for it.
Yeah.
I mean,
Amen to that. Yeah. Yeah, I
uh,
love that advice. That's great advice that you're giving, because if you don't have here and now money, you're going to be immediately distracted, trying to keep up, chasing deals so you can pay the bills and put groceries on the, food on the table, as opposed to building a business. And so that's excellent advice you're giving your students, Wyatt.
for sure, for sure. Well, how can people get a hold of you? How can they talk to you, ask you questions, pick your brain, and take you out to lunch? Right?
Yeah, yeah, I love it. Yeah, I'll give the number that we have for the business line. It's 423-301-0333. Always happy to take a call from anybody and have a conversation around it. And as far as finding us on Facebook, you can find us under Jeremiah and Amanda, the home buying team. It's our Facebook page. Again, it's Jeremiah and Amanda, the home buying team, and we're right here in Northeast Alabama.
Y'all check it out and follow him. He puts out a lot of great content. Very wise, man. I always love having conversations with you. We just
Likewise.
we just met in person at an event in Atlanta, and
Yeah,
man, we talked a couple times, and we talked for a minute. So
yeah,
it's always good to have good conversation with kingdom-minded business people. So I love it, man.
love
Well,
it.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you so much for being on. If you guys heard anything that you were like, man, I'd like to know how they did this, or man, I'd love to do that, then just go to ascendyoursuccess.com. We'd love to have a conversation with you. You'll talk to me personally. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.
All right. Thanks.